Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of Author Eke. Today I have Nate Kozer, who's written a pretty good little novel there that he's going to talk about. I'll let Nate introduce himself, and then we're going to get right into the novel. We'll get into writing and marketing and everything people love about being an author, and some things that people don't like about being an author, marketing, stuff like that. So, Nate, take it away, please.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. So I'm Nathaniel Kozer. Everyone calls me Nate. I'm a Bronx, New York resident for about 5 years. I lived in Brooklyn before that. The folks who live in Brooklyn and the Bronx know how big of a deal that is.
Is it really?
Yeah. There's a lot of borough pride there. Usually, if I talk to folks who knew me from high
Yeah.
school and they hear I moved to the Bronx, like, you're in the Bronx. So
Now, but can you tell by the accent, by the how you talk or the terms you use? Can you tell somebody from what part of the city?
no, it not really. You could tell sort of like from generally higher income or lower income sometimes,
Okay.
but no, not you can't really tell. It's just when you talk to folks you knew from back in the day, and you say, "Oh, I'm in Riverdale now." Riverdale's a neighborhood in the Bronx. They're like, "Wait,
Yeah.
why? Why would you leave?"
Why would you leave? I heard that before. Hey, so go ahead, man. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's
Tell
fine.
us about yourself.
So I have a wife and two kids, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Work for the city. I have a job that's no one's ever heard of, but usually people find interesting when I tell them
What is
about it.
it?
I work in a small little division called Fleet Services. We manage the city's vehicles,
Okay.
so garbage trucks, fire trucks, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I work on the safety side of it. So if there's if sanitation decides they want to put backup cameras on every single one of their trucks, I'm the guy who finds the correct camera company and then organizes with sanitation to get them on the truck.
Now, do you use a company called Truck for some of your software?
No,
Wheels. I'm sorry, Wheels.
I know of wheels, but no, we don't
Yeah.
use them.
Well, I own a software company, and they were a customer, so that's all I know about those guys. But
Gotcha.
my wife's working for the transportation for the local school district here, so she's a parts inventory specialist. So she got, yeah,
Very cool.
they got the white fleet, they got the buses and things. So yeah, very cool,
Very cool. Very cool.
excellent, excellent. So how did you get into that? I mean,
Very much by accident. So the kind of mother agency of where I work is called DCAS, Citywide Administrative Services. And most people know them as the HR, the human resources arm of the city. So when I saw the job opening, my background is in HR, my school background.
oh, okay,
And so when I saw the job opening, I thought, oh, okay, DCAS, human resources, that works.
yeah, yeah.
I sat down and they started talking about vehicles and like, okay. But then it kind of fit because there was like training programs that I would have to run and things like that. So, my skill set applied and they liked
Well,
me.
that's cool. So you went from HR to fleet management,
Yeah.
sort of, and to writing.
Yes.
How do those all incorporate one another?
the the
How do they
writing
gel?
the writing became before the fleet management. The my book Kinetics is a sequel, and Latency came out last year. Latency's the first in the series. I was working on Latency first, the drafting, and then to get it published for 8 years before it came out.
Oh, wow.
So I started the book that eventually became Latency before my career with Fleet Services started.
So talk to us about latency, and then let's carry it in to, I guess, the second in the series of how many will there be?
Right now, it's just the two. I have ideas for a third and a fourth, and it's just a matter of getting to the sales numbers needed to kind of justify
Sure.
writing the next ones.
Yep.
But
Understand.
the I had ideas for a book for a long time, for a decade or more before I actually sat down to write it. But I always thought of it more as like, hey, that would be a cool idea. I hope some director or author writes that someday. I'd love to read it.
Hmm.
It wasn't until now about 9 years ago when I was going through a bit of a rough patch. Like I had an engagement that broke off and that a lot of anxiety, sleepless nights from that. I figured I'm not sleeping. I'm always, got this energy now from being, anxious, angry, whatever all the time. Might as well apply it to something positive. And so I wrote the book. Initially, my idea was that both latency and kinetics, when I had it in my head, was going to be one book. Um,
Oh, wow, that'd be a big book.
well, that was the thing. When I got to like 110,000 words in and still had half a story to write, I'm like, okay, I need to find a stopping point
Yeah,
here. Uh,
that's more like a fantasy book when it gets into that
yeah,
number of character words.
yeah. So I found a nice stopping point, kind of in the middle of where it would be, and the first one became latency. The second one became kinetics.
Excellent, excellent. So, talk to us about latency, and then we're going to talk about
Sure.
kinetics.
So latency is a superhero sci-fi novel. It takes place on 26th century Earth when
You're an optimist.
uh, I've been accused of that before. Excuse me. Yeah. So the underlying premise is that a piece of biotechnology has been created that can convert body heat. So, right now, exposed skin, there's body heat being
Yeah,
created and it escapes into the atmosphere. Biotechnology is created to capture that energy and use it to create electricity. That technology
interesting.
in the book, this is kind of the history before the book starts, is used for
Yeah,
100 years or so with very little issue. And then seemingly randomly, one day it starts causing problems that newborns are coming out with the technology already on them. It's not supposed to work that way. And because it isn't like the properly installed one, there's all sorts of problems that result in them getting superpowers.
yeah. Oh, wow, cool.
Eventually, that causes a lot of problems, terroristic level problems, and the government of that time decides to go through an extermination effort. And you're picking up in latency with the last six, arguably the most powerful, left alive as they are fighting against the world government that is hunting them down.
Do they grow up? The kids grow up and
Yeah.
be adults?
Yeah, so the latency starts about 20 years after the extermination effort. So it's adults who, through hiding and through help from others, have survived to adulthood.
Right. So how long? So it took you 8 years for the first one
Yes,
for
the
latency,
initial draft took me lots of stopping and starting, but about a year.
of course.
Um,
Okay.
and then I went through multiple rounds of edits and tried to get it traditionally published for a couple of years. It didn't work out. I got some bites, some requests for partials and fulls, but
Yeah, yeah.
nothing ever worked out. And I had sort of given up on latency and was moving on to another project. But then Cinnabar Moth, that's my publisher, randomly tweeted out one day, "Hey, we have an opening for a 2024 release. Does anyone have a completed sci-fi novel of X amount of words?" And I was like, me, I have
Oh,
one
that's
of
pretty
those.
cool. That's serendipity there. That's
Serendipity,
pretty cool.
absolutely. Yeah, so and it all worked out from there.
So how long did it take you to write the second one? Because you already had the idea, evidently.
Yes, the second one also took about a year, but it my life had changed so dramatically since I wrote the first one. Back then I was single, I had no kids. I was 28 years old. I could stay up till 4 a.m. and write. I can't do that anymore, and I have lots of other, priorities that take up my day. So most of Kinetics was written on my commute to work. Like I broke out my 12-year-old laptop and was plugging away on it for my hour-long subway ride.
And then by the time you got there, the battery was dead.
Yes,
Save often. Still technology there.
absolutely.
So what what do you want the reader to like experience, like the 26th century America or the world? Actually, I get the world, not just America, the world.
Yeah, so latency, since I imagined it originally as one book, I started small, like local, and it sort of expanded in its reach
Mm-hmm.
until it encompassed the whole world. So in latency, it's mostly North America and then a little bit of Europe gets explored.
Sure. Yep.
In kinetics, it's I should have mentioned it's six main characters.
Yeah.
So
Go
it's
ahead.
jumping through multiple POVs all the time. In kinetics, the six of them split up to do tasks that need to be done simultaneously around the world. So all six of them go to six different corners of the world, so you get to explore more of it in that way.
Excellent. So how is the world? The world already exists, so but there's some world building. Right? You gotta build. something that's futuristic, that's believable to some extent, or could happen. Just like when Star Trek came out, all that that stuff is all out of it'll never work, and now we're using half the stuff that they had in Star Trek.
Yeah, there was a lot of world building. I did a lot of research at the start, like population growth. That seemed to be the most, like 26th century population's not going to be the same as it is
Yeah,
now.
right.
And it could be significantly different. It could be like up to 40 billion people that live on the planet. So I started thinking about how the leaders of the world would house so many people. And around that same time, I had watched the remake of Dread. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've never seen that.
So the old one in the '80s was a Stallone movie, but the new one is Carl Urban plays essentially a cop who is judge, jury, and executioner.
Well, I've seen that. Yeah, okay, I've seen it. I saw the old one. I haven't seen the new one.
Yeah, I do recommend it. It's very gory, but it's very good. But what I borrowed from it is in Dread, essentially all of humanity is in these mega cities. So a lot of giant skyscrapers, hundreds of stories tall skyscrapers, all like kind of congregated together. So you're talking a million or more.
Like Hong Kong.
Not too dissimilar. So I heavily borrowed from Dread on that it's essentially most of the world is living in humongous, million person occupant skyscrapers. And most
Man,
of the rest of cities are largely abandoned.
so you'll have people that you know that would never ever leave their building or floors of their building because everything would be self-contained
Yes.
through some type of technology or logistics or something.
Yes.
That's kind of cool. So how I don't want to give nothing away, but how do they know if they have the power? Or if so they did somebody just give off too much heat
No.
and they turn to create energy?
So the I mean, it's not really a spoiler. It's explored early in latency. The
Uh,
device is called the latent organic energy converter, the LOEC,
okay,
is the acronym used in the book.
right,
And it's supposed to be surgically implanted and then kind of grows a system
okay,
out. The people who are born with it, there's a part of it that's supposed to be like visible on the outside. That's where you like connect to power something. So if they're born with that, they have the system.
oh, all right,
Yeah.
interesting. That's clever,
And then
actually.
as for the superpowers, they are very plainly obvious. Like some of the characters can fly. One of them can create like blades of energy out of his hands. The most powerful of them, Sarah, who is essentially the main subject of the first book,
Right,
she is powerful enough that she can sort of create explosions of energy out of her body that reach to like a couple 100 feet wide.
right.
Very obvious when they're superpowered.
Excellent. Do they attract one another? How do they know each other? So they know, okay, this is friendly or foe. Or,
They really don't. All at the start of latency, there's a brother and sister duo, Naren and Nadine. They know each other. None of the other main characters have ever met previously.
okay,
Naren essentially concocts a whole plan with Sarah's help to kind of find the rest of them and unite them. Yeah.
cool. All right. So you find time now since you got a family. So finding time to write is so you still do it on the subway, or did you move closer to work, or when you find time? I mean, even though the books are out, that you still you want to write a little something. When the third comes out, you want to be ready for it to go or whatever. When do you find time to write? What's your best time?
If I did take up the third one, it would probably still be on the subway and on weekends. That would be where most of my writing would get done at this point.
Are you able to tune everybody out? I mean, so I work for the school district. I'm a monitor on a school bus for special needs. And I went to the break room a couple of weeks ago, and I'm reading a book, and they were talking. The guy says, "How do you read the country?" I can tune you out.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, I'm tuning you out right now. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I just tune people out.
there's definitely times on the subway where something is happening that you can't tune out, and
Yeah,
may
I
not
bet.
necessarily want to tune out.
Yeah,
You kind of want to
yeah,
pay attention at some points.
yep,
But for the most part, I since I live pretty far north, I usually get a seat. Um, and I just kind of I sit down, I get my headphones in my ear. Every book that I write has like an artist that I listen to kind of keep me in the zone.
yeah. I do. I listen to music too.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you said that on. I've been listening to a couple of your podcasts. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah, so I put my music on, I take out my tablet, and when I get to downtown Manhattan, I get off.
So you don't set any type of, oh, I'm going to do 1,000 words today, or I'm going to do. You just do what you can do when you can.
For the most part. There was one point where I was concerned about how far behind I was falling, and I took a week off from work to catch up. So
Okay.
in those situations, I do set goals for myself. Like especially in that, I saw I was 10 chapters behind where I was supposed to. So like, okay, I got a week. Gonna go set up in the library. I'm gonna get these 10 chapters
That's
done.
some good writing.
Yeah,
That's some good writing. So are you a outliner or a pantser
I'm an
or a
outliner.
combination? Okay.
I know
So
you're
you
more of
outline
a
pretty.
pantser, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm definitely.
yeah.
I try. I try to, but I just can't outline. I put things in what I want to put in the book, things, but it's tough for me to outline because I'm like, well, I'm writing it anyways. I might just go ahead and knock it out, which, you know, good or bad, whatever. It does.
The way that I kind of came to writing lended itself more to plotting because like I had the story idea in my head the whole time. Um, so like writing an outline just so I didn't forget the details that were already there, just it made more sense. Um,
Right.
but it still surprises me sometimes. Like when I was writing Kinetics, there was I had a general idea of a chapter that I wanted. It was sort of one of the characters is in kind of a fish out of water situation in Kinetics, and I couldn't figure out the interactions of it. So I just went for it. I pantsed it, and it turned
Yeah.
into this very like silly, more lighthearted chapter that was kind of a breath of fresh air for an otherwise serious book. So I was glad I did it. It went a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Very extemporaneous, I guess. When I write, I put some stuff down. So, talk to us because every author. I don't care if you're traditionally published unless you're Jack Carr or somebody, right? You do your own marketing predominantly. So, how do you, other podcasts, of course, but how do you get the name out? Do you have a strategy, or how often do you work on marketing? What's kind of your deal on that?
Unfortunately, because of my life and having to write Kinetics, I really couldn't focus on marketing as much as I needed to for latency. Your podcast is the perfect example. Like I knew about you over a year ago.
Mhm.
That was when our publisher, sent out an email, and I think you interviewed a
Yep.
couple of people, a little over
Oh
a year
yeah,
ago.
sure have. Yeah. Yeah.
I just couldn't find the time to like, have an hour to sit down. So I am definitely with Kinetics coming out, making a more concerted effort to focus on social media, focus on doing podcasts
Right.
and signings like this. Give it the chance it really deserves to sell some copies.
Yeah. I mean, you took the time and the effort and money, right? I mean, nothing's free, and you really got to get out there and market. Have you done like Facebook ads or do you do TikTok or anything like that?
I am going to be joining Book Talk shortly. I haven't joined it yet, but I've been talking to. I'm fortunate enough that I work with quite a few young folks at my job, and so they have been a lifesaver in terms of guiding me for how to navigate TikTok.
Yeah,
So I'm excited to take that on. I haven't done Facebook ads yet, although one of the podcasts I was just listening to of yours, I'm probably gonna follow up and follow the author on Twitter so that I can kind of get a better idea of how to do that. And I did a little bit of an ad run on through my website. My website is generated through WordPress, and they have an advertising option. So I was dabbling with that just to kind of see what it's like, because it wasn't that expensive.
traffic you have going to your website. And I do, Facebook, Instagram ads, running, concurrently. You got to do something, right? I mean, so I don't have a newsletter. Maybe I should, but I just don't have the time.
Mhm.
What am I going to write? What am I going to write about every week or month? It's just going to get monotonous. So I do these podcasts or I do book interviews, something like that, talking about stuff. So it, you get the marketing. Because I look at it, every book is a business, and you got to have a business plan associated with that book. And you got to have marketing, you got to have branding. So people want to know, okay, Nate is a fantasy, techno kind of fantasy type writer, right? Futuristic. So everybody knows you, for that aspect of your writing. So that's really good. So what's the family think about your writing? Like,
Oh, they love it.
whoa,
That they are kind of the reason I kept going with it. When I first considered writing Latency, the first thing I wrote was essentially just like an exposition dump chapter. It wasn't even like a full-fledged story. It was more or less, the description that I just gave you at the beginning of the podcast. That's what I wrote
yeah, yeah.
down and sent to people. And it was them saying, "This is awesome. You should write more of this. I want to read more of this." That motivated me to write the whole book. So now that it is finished and out or soon to be out in the world, they couldn't be more supportive, and they're probably more excited than I am. The Kinetics is out on March 4th. So I think this podcast will
Right
be,
around the corner.
yeah. So I wasn't sure about like how quickly your turnaround was. So,
I'll put you on the queue
oh, I
for you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hell, I own my stuff. I do it from home.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'll put it out there.
Thank you. That would be awesome.
So you do book signings. How do you first got to go to the bookstore, I'm an indie author. They got to have, see, they got to have
Yes.
got the union, right, for especially the indie authors. Where I'm in Texas, there's a few. There's really good ones
Mhm.
too. Um, but you just want to say, hey, I'm Nate. I wrote a book, like a book signing, or that's I just got to bombard them.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I need to get better about that. In New York, it's kind of a problem of abundance on both sides. That there's a lot of bookstores that I can, you reach out to, but then they also have a lot of authors reaching out to them. So it's kind of a little give and take that you have to kind of figure out. And then I am a little bit of an introvert, so it's always like I have to really push myself to like walk into a bookstore and say, "Hey, I'm an author. I want to do an event here." But I got to get over it. Like there's no other way.
Wife and I went to France last summer to relive the book, and there's a bookstore in the book, and I gave them a copy of the book. And I just went in and said, "Hey, I'm Travis Davis. I wrote a book, World War One book, and your bookstore's in the book." I
That's
mean,
awesome.
yeah, I don't have a problem.
That must have been so
Um,
exciting.
yeah, it was very moving. Very, very, very good. So, what publisher again?
Cinnabar Moth.
Something like that.
They have an office in New Mexico, but the folks who run it, they live in Japan.
What memory? 65 years old. What a memory.
Yeah, impressive.
Well, obviously, you don't remember anything, so thanks. It's like remembering. So, what advice would you give a new author? I mean, you want to tell them new yourself, but there's folks out there that maybe have an idea, they haven't written it. What kind of would you say?
It's determination, I guess. I don't know if that's necessarily the right word, but I never imagined myself being an author. Like that wasn't something I wanted to do growing up. The only reason I am in the position I'm in now is because I pushed through and wrote the book. And like a lot of people get stuck there. They have the idea, maybe they write a chapter or two, but they don't finish it. That would be my advice: is finish it and then see what happens. I did not expect to be a published author, and yet here I am. And it was only because I finished a book.
Like a lot of people, they have to write a book, or it takes years, or they just kind of, 'cause it is a lot of work. I mean, not just the writing aspect of it, it's the editing, it's the, proofreading, it's marketing, it's getting out there, and it's not cheap. Publish. So it's capital outlay that I have to do, and
Absolutely.
things you have to do from a business perspective. Yeah. Do you have a copy of the book or anything with you?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'll go get them.
Deception. Dr. Pistol is coming out on the 25th of 104. Get your copy today.
Yeah, they were just in the other room. So this is latency. I got a little thing from the container store to put them in. So that's latency. And then this is kinetics. Can you see that? Yeah.
Cover format. That's very good.
Yeah, the
Smart.
I forgot the name of the cover artist escapes me right now, but they did a fantastic job, like, mirroring it and everything. Yes. Latency has been out for about a year now. So that's on sale. Yeah, wherever books are sold online. And then Kinetics is on pre-order, and I guess by the time this comes out, it'll be on sale as of tomorrow on Barnes and Noble and on Amazon.
Pleasure meeting you, and keep with it. Keep trudging along.
Thank you very much.
And don't forget, write a book. You only self-publish. It's not a bad deal. As long as your publishing house stays with you, keep at it. And best of luck, and just keep on writing.
Thank you, and good luck to you as you write your future books as well.
Thank you very much.
You as well.
Bye-bye.